Hey, everybody, welcome to TNM Coaching Unplugged, the Zoran Todorovic Interconnected podcast. We are so happy and grateful to see you all again. Thank you so much for growing our podcast by sharing, by listening. This is the podcast when we explore leadership, human development, and we also look into these invisible forces that shape our performance, our influence, and our connection. In today's episode, we are going to talk about something that a lot of leaders, small business owners, professionals think they understand, but they never really master. And I can vouch for myself. I always thought I understood this topic really well. I thought I was really good at it, but I never managed to master that. And this topic is networking. We're not going to talk about transactional networking. We're not going to talk about how do we collect business cards and how do we share LinkedIn QR codes at the conferences. How do we position ourselves? We are not going to talk about how can you help me, what is in it for me, which I've done a lot in my networking life. We're going to talk about a conscious, structured, value-driven networking, which I think it's an amazing concept. And our guest today is Carsten Sudhoff. He's an author of No One Wins Alone. I think this is such a beautiful title of the book. And this book introduces a powerful framework for structured networking, practical and tested methodology that brings meaningful relationships with intention, with clarity, and then, of course, with the long-term value creation. Carsten is also known for his leadership development work. He's known for his organizational transformation work. Of course, he's passionate about his topic that bridges together collaboration and then, of course, structured networking process. Carsten challenges people in his book of the myth that self-made success story replaces something that is much more accurate, which is success. It's always rational and structured, which I really like because we need framework, we need systems, we need processes to be successful in our networking endeavors. We're going to cover a lot of topics. Among those topics is going to be how do we shift from this coincidence-based networking into conscious value creation? How do we look into our personal brand and how understanding of our personal brand changes everything? How do we communicate? We also need to look a little bit more into the patterns of influence that we build that will sabotage us or help us with our networking endeavors. It's a beautiful topic. As I said, many people think they're very good with this. Very few people master this. And this book is really significant and special disruptor on the market that will help you understand yourself and understand how you network. Well, Carsten, welcome to TNM Coaching Unplugged.
I feel so humbled by the words I just heard. Thank you, Zoran. Great to be here.
Yeah. I mean it. I mean, it's always interesting when somebody like you brings something new or polish the concept, which is really, really important for all us. And as I said, I love the name No One Wins Alone. How did you come with that name? Let's start with that. I'm always curious. How did that download into your consciousness?
I mean, the topic of networking or building relationships with other people or finding people to help fix my problem or other people's problems has been with me since the early days of my childhood. I moved from country to country as a son of a diplomat. And I realized quickly that I'm good at a lot of things, but I'm really not good at most other things. And so I needed to find help. And I realized that there's a real value to be had by asking people for help and getting help. And I realized, well, no matter how brilliant I might be, or you might be, or anybody might be, there's no way I can win alone. And that's where the title came from.
Yeah, beautiful. And I really believe in that because sometimes when we open up and become a little bit more vulnerable to being more conscientious about it, we need other people to help us out, then it really is powerful. So networking, value creation, what was your life journey that got you to this topic of collaboration and networking? Why was that important in your own life? And then why do you feel this is important in our lives?
So as mentioned, my life meant moving country and continent on a regular basis. Overall, I lived in 8 countries on 3 continents. I learned pretty early how to create contacts with new people in new countries, but the question was always, how do I stay in touch with the people in whose country I don't live anymore? The first time that I encountered a somewhat structured networking approach was during my studies in France at the French Grande École, in the shape of the alumni network. I didn't really use it much. I then moved to Daimler Chrysler, the automotive manufacturing company. I was part of a high potential program, and I was told, Carsten, one thing is for sure, you need to build yourself a network. I heard the order, but I had no bloody clue how to do this. I did observe, though, that some people in these 12 years that I was at Daimler Chrysler did a quicker career, maybe because of their network. And I also observed some people that did not quite proceed in a career that as quickly as others, maybe because they lacked a network. But the system, the method, I didn't understand. I then joined the World Economic Forum as a chief human resource officer. And so I spent 5.5 amazing years with top decision makers from business, civil society, academia, and politics. And I thought to myself, how is it possible that some people seem to be at total ease in networking with other people? And then I thought to myself, maybe networking is something that only the white extroverted male can do. Not true. Maybe you need a safe space like the Congress Center in Davos to do networking. Not true. So eventually this idea came up, is there a method that can turn anybody into a successful networker? And so I left the WEF in 2013 and became an entrepreneur. And I dedicated my entrepreneurial activities to networking and building human ecosystems. I created a method that today is called structured networking, which I applied to people. I saw what happened. I refined the method. I reapplied it and redefined it, etc., etc. Today, I look back on 10,000 people worldwide that have been trained on this method. I think, and that sounds arrogant, I don't mean it arrogant in any way, I think I've heard every possible question that there is, and I think I have every answer to this question. At least that's what my clients say. And so I thought, what good is it to keep this to myself? If I believe and no one wills alone, well, I need to put this in a book and share this with everybody who realizes they have a problem, and they realize that in order to fix my problem, I need at least one other person. Who is that other person, and how can I get hold of that person? And that's what this book aims to do.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for that lovely introduction and your background. I think it's always lovely in our podcast that people know a little bit more about yourself, about the context of your life, and how did you arrive to do what you do. So now let's go into the more specific topics of conversation. You mentioned that this framework is structured networking. So how would you distinguish between the structured networking and what we call accidental networking, when somebody just shows up? What is the difference? I really would love to start from that point for our listeners.
So let me give a little story around the typical experience in unstructured networking. So let's assume I have to go to this event. I don't want to go there, but my company pushes me there, and so I have to be there. I come into the door and I see 100 people and I don't know anybody. The typical reaction is, oh God, why do I have to be here? How am I going to survive this evening? No, hang on, over there, that's Frank. Oh, at least one other person I know. So I go over to Frank. Frank and I are happy to see each other. We talk about the good old times. We have 2 glasses of Prosecco and then go home with zero impact on a network. I don't have to go to this event to see Frank. I already know Frank. And so this is what I call unstructured networking. And from my experience, the story resonates with a lot of people because typically that's what we do. We try and cling on to those people that we already know because we fear that other people might find that we intrude their conversations when we butt in, or we actually lack the words to break the ice with a somewhat stranger. And it's actually so easy because it's human to human. And with a couple of tips and tricks that you find in the book, anybody can do it.
Yeah, I find this so fascinating to share that because that's a very common thing that everybody does, including myself. And I always thought, this is, I feel awkward. I feel a little bit insecure, especially if it's a new network that I never been there before. And then I'm looking, who is that person I can connect to? And I will find my Frank, and I will probably go to my Frank and say, hey, Frank, you're here. And then I would stay. I think that's a very common thing that everybody recognizes. Even if you're extrovert, and I see myself as introvert, extrovert, I would do something like that. So in the structured networking, let's go with that kind of beautiful story. So you are gravitating towards Frank and you stay there. What can I do instead? What is the process that I can follow not to do that or to do something completely different?
So the method structured networking is based on 5 modules. There's the role of the seeker. That's a person who's looking for something, looking for a job, looking for contact, looking for an answer, looking for something. The second role is the role of the connector. The connector realizes what the seeker is looking for, but says, I'm not the person that you're looking for, but I think I might have somebody in my network who might be able to help. The third role is the role of the giver, which is the person that the seeker looks for. The fourth module is what I call the task, which is the search request from the seeker. And the fifth module is the personal brand. Who am I? What do I stand for? And how am I different from other people? And so if we now translate or apply the concept of structured networking, for instance, to the job search, let's say I lost my job and I would say, Zoran, right, you heard that I lost my job. Please, if you ever hear anything, do think of me. And what will you do? You will nod, but you will do nothing because you neither know exactly what my brand is, who I am, what I stand for, and what I'm good at, nor do you know what I'm really looking for. So I'll be upset with you because you don't help me. Then I'll think, well, of course he doesn't help me. I don't have a job at the moment, so I'm not an interesting person. And besides, networking never works. No, none of that is true. The fact that I did not provide clarity on who I am and what I'm looking for will not put you in a position to help me. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I love that. I love that the clarity and that we need to take the ownership of it. So tell me a little bit more about the roles just for our audience to really understand. So the seeker, I'm looking for something, right? I would love to gain something. I would love to get something from that event. So does the seeker always have some kind of agenda, or does it need to be clear about, what he or she is looking for?
Two things. The majority of people that I've worked with, and that's a rather large number worldwide, see networking or see their role as they go into networking only as a seeker, as somebody who needs help, somebody who can't do something by himself or herself. And that makes people feel insecure, worth less, and they don't dare to ask other people for help. So this role of the seeker oftentimes comes with the sensation of I'm not good enough, or I'm not, let's say, up to eye level with the other people. The moment you realize, though, that a conversation that you might have started as a seeker, you can change your role to becoming a connector and a giver at the same time, suddenly it levels the playing field and it's just human to human. That's point one. Point two, many people, too many people, and maybe we'll be able to reduce that number with the help of this method. They go to an event and they are not prepared. They don't really know why they go there, what they could get out of it. They don't. If they are a seeker, they might not actually understand how they could use and benefit from this event. They're not prepared. They don't have a task. It could be that you don't have a task. You're not looking for anything. So you don't go to an event as a seeker, but you could prepare going to an event as a connector or as a giver. The idea is, I am here. I'm going to actively and in a structured way open my network to help whoever wants my help, or to share my experience, my wisdom with whoever is looking for it.
Yeah, beautiful. Because when you shift in that role, I can already see when the connector, sorry, from seeker being a little bit more like hungry to get something out of it. If we move into connector and giver, we can balance this one out. And even if you don't seek anything, you can position yourself as a connector and giver.
Absolutely.
And then broaden up your network by playing that role, right?
Absolutely. And it's easy. I mean, the only thing you need to do is to think of what role do I have, or what role do I want to take when I go into the event. Maybe I want all three, maybe just one or two. The thing is, this task thing, the search request, takes considerable effort to get right. Back to my example about me asking you for help in my job search. Most people believe that, well, my reality and who I am is A, interesting, and B, clear to everybody else. And my experience is it's not. Nobody really cares enough about me to sit down at home and think, now, this Carsten guy, he's an interesting person. Let me spend 3 hours in a glass of red wine to really think of how can I help him. Nobody does that. Not because I'm boring. It's just not what anybody does. So if I don't produce clarity, nobody will.
Yeah. And it's true. And this is such a wonderful perspective to gain, because I think it's linked towards people don't care, people don't engage. I'm alone inside of this. Nobody really cares. But what you're inviting us to do is sit down in the driver's seat and really understand the psychology behind this, and then transform that psychology into something that can really work for us. Yeah. So I love that. So that task is also important, isn't it?
The task is really important, and I know that when I teach these programs at company levels or individuals or associations around the world, people in the beginning think I'm pedantic, I'm bureaucratic when I talk about the importance of the clarity of the task. But my experience is that if my task isn't clear, or if my own brand isn't clear, the human being tends to like to help other people, but the human being rather does nothing than the wrong thing. So back to my example of clarity. And so the book has a different steps of how to make sure that the task, first of all, has to materialize by being taken out of the brain and then onto paper, because that process of writing it down manifests the task. And then there are a couple of check questions you can apply to make sure that the task works. Because imagine I ask you for help, Zoran. Now I know you, I've known you for years now. You can ask me back, like, Carsten, I'm not sure that I understand your task. But let's assume you need to ask Mr. A and Mrs. B in your network to help me. So I talk about network chains or connector chains in my book. You can ask me question because you know me. But what about this person A or person B in these chains? They don't know me. They can't come back to me and ask me, Carsten, what do you exactly mean by the task? So imagine the importance of clarity of the task if there are more people that are going to help me in this network chain than just one connector.
Yeah. I understand that, and it's very clear to me. And I think that how we are in today's world, because of the overstimulation with information, the clarity, it's a very, very important skill set to have. If we are ambiguous or we don't know what we actually want, if we don't catalyze our task, as you said, by writing it down, by becoming clear, but mandating ourselves to come up, it's really difficult for people to engage, isn't it? Because they will not know, even if they want to help, even if they want to connect, even if they want to become resources, they don't know how to actually do this in a good way.
Yes, and so producing clarity is one of the early steps in this process. I can give you another example. So I was approached by a young entrepreneur who had participated in the keynote that I did, and she came to me and said, "Wow, this was great. Can you help me?" And I said, "Sure. What can I do for you?" And she said, "Well, you see, I'm an entrepreneur and I'm looking for new business opportunities." I said, "Okay, why don't you tell me who you are and what you're looking for?" So the personal brand and the task thing. True story. She started talking and talking and talking and talking. And after a moment, I said, "What are you doing?" She stopped and said, "Why? What's wrong?" And I said, "You're not providing any clarity to me. So you're expecting that I listen to you, that I switch on my brain to try and understand what it is that you're telling me, and then you're expecting that I take what I think I heard from you, put this in my words, and then turn around to my network and sell to my network what I think I heard you say. I'm not going to do that. Nobody will. So if you don't produce clarity, nobody will." And that helped her a lot, because she realized that she was pitching and trying to find businesses, opportunities, etc., but she was not getting anywhere. And that was the reason, because she wasn't clear on neither herself nor her task.
And in your experience, and I think this is a very important question for people who are listening, especially in this, what do I need to do to create that clarity? So if I was to be that entrepreneur and you listen and she's talking and processing and conceptualizing and confusing, and then you say, hold on a second, you need to produce clarity. How do we do that? How did you do this in your life, and how do other people do that?
The book talks about 3 check questions. So after taking my idea from my brain and writing it down, so this process of manifesting my thought or my question, 3 check questions. The first one is, if I got an answer on this task as a seeker, would this answer help me? Yes or no? If yes, I move to question 2. If no, I need to rewrite the task until the answer gets positive, maybe with the help of artificial intelligence tools that are out there.
Why not?
Check question number 2. If I were a connector or a giver, would I understand what this task is expecting me to do? Yes or no? If yes, I move to question 3. If no, I have to redo the task until the answer gets positive, maybe with the help of artificial intelligence tools that are out there. Check question number 3. If I now look at the task as it is in front of me, can I take words out of the task to shorten it without changing its original meaning? If yes, I should do it. If no, the task is ready.
Wonderful, wonderful structure. Really, really, really good. I love that. And I think that nowadays we do need that mental clarity and mental structure, especially when we ask for something, we communicate. I love it. I love it. I love it. You already can see, guys, who are listening to this, why do you need to read this book? I don't need to tell you, you already understand. You must have it, right? Now, one of the things that I really want to decode with you is this that has stayed with me for such a long time, and this conversation about the personal brand and personal brand clarity, because I came across this concept very early on because I was coaching, and it became very interesting and popular in corporate and also around the world, like personal brand, personal brand, personal. And I know from my experience, I don't, maybe you disagree, Carsten, many people don't even know what it means. And many people don't even know how to catalyze their personal brand. So let's start with that. If somebody is unaware of their personal brand, in your opinion, what is the best way for them to become aware? And then what is the role of the personal brand? What role personal brand actually plays in this clarity within the structured networking process?
So let's use the example of me looking for a job. It's a classical way to apply the method of structured networking. So many people say, well, I'm generally open for a lot of things. Now, the problem is that doesn't sell. No company cares about that kind of wishy-washy kind of positioning. So the book explains a concept that I call the pain point, pain as an ouch, pain point concept. So the question is really, what pain point should an organization have so that I am the best candidate? So this process of digesting this question and finding an answer to this question results in the fact that from a lot of theoretical job options that we think exist out there, many, many, many disappear like butter in a pan. And then 2 or 3 jobs remain available, or say stay left. But for these 2 or 3 jobs, it becomes obvious to the hiring manager and to me that I'm the best fit. And it's a process that is painstakingly difficult to find an answer to the question, what pain point should an organization have so that I am the best candidate? But it's imperative. In a world that is as fragmented as ours, in a world where so many people are jockeying for attention and people boast and brag and say, I'm good at this and I'm perfect at that, you need to zoom into something really specific. What pain point should an organization have so that I'm the best candidate? And then you use the method of structured networking to identify where is that company, that organization, that person that is in need of what I can fix. And it works every single time because it is based on clarity. It is based on a certain pain that the recipient, the hiring manager, I tend to call that person the buyer. It's based on a pain point that the buyer has. And we all know if I have a pain point, I need to fix it. If it's a nice to have, I might actually wait for weeks and months before I do anything. But if I have a pain point, I'm going to look for somebody to help me fix it.
Exactly. And it's really immediate, it's very specific, and that the pain point will drive that conversation forward in the most beautiful way, so that we need to become extremely clear around that as well. We need to become clear about what is my personal brand, what is the essence, and how is my personal brand addressing that pain point and also activating the network throughout the conversation, right? So
yeah, so maybe just an example. If I go to a jeans store and tell the shop assistant I'm looking for a new pair of jeans, and the guy shows me a really nice green T-shirt, I'm going to say, it's a nice T-shirt, but my pain point is a pair of jeans I won't buy, and I will leave the room or the shop, right? It's the same kind of logic, whether you're applying for a job or whether you are trying to find wisdom and answers and support as a project manager in an organization, or if you're trying to build what I call an ecosystem, so a collaborative system between different companies to fix a commercial problem together, which alone you can't fix. It's always the same idea. What's the pain point, and how do I find the organization that has that need, and then I can go and sell to it.
Exactly. Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. Now, I know that you mentioned, if I'm not wrong, throughout the book, the trust is very important, and also trust beyond the first meeting, beyond first encounters, throughout the networking initiatives. So what can you tell us about this importance of trust and emphasizing building the trust that lasts beyond those first interactions, let's say in immediate networking?
So if you were to ask me to connect you with somebody, and I didn't really know who you were or what you're looking for or why you are interested in getting connected to this other person, I might feel uncomfortable because this person that I know well might come back to me and say, why on earth did you connect me with Zoran? I didn't understand who he was, nor what he wanted. Why would you do that? So
Yeah.
I
Wasting
might
my time, right? You're wasting
wasting my time. And so if I don't believe, I don't understand who you are, what you're looking for, I might decide not to help you at all because the risk of being disappointed or getting bad feedback is too high. So I learned over the last 12 years that this lack of trust or the importance of building trust prior to then using the network to help is an absolute importance. And there are many ways to do this. So, for instance, I believe that the role of a connector sooner rather than later, will be as also commercially relevant as the role of the influencer is on Instagram or on other social media. So if I connect you with, I don't know, a job or a buyer or I don't know, to rent an apartment, whatever, I create value. But in order to do that, I need to build trust. I need to, let's say, have created an image, a reputation in the system of somebody who is trustworthy. And there are lots of ways to do that. For instance, I talk about a game that I invented 10 years ago that is called Network Memory. I guess we all know the game that babies play with little cards that are placed face down on the floor. The idea is to turn them around and create matching pairs of cats and dogs and houses and so on. And network memory works the same way. So I play this typically on whenever I have a moment. I go to my social media contacts. I try and remember. I sort them alphabetically. Then I try and remember where did I leave last time. I think that was the letter D for dog. Okay, the next letter is E. So I scroll down to the letter E, the first name. So let's say the first name is Emil. And I think, wow, I can't think of anything for Emil. Okay, well, nothing comes to mind. Next. The next person is Eric. And I think, Eric, hang on, he's in crypto financing, right? Yeah, he's in crypto financing. Hang on, my contact Zando is also in crypto financing, right? Yeah, hey, I could connect those two. So because I do this so often, because I'm lazy by nature, I have a ready-made Word document with 4 1.5-line messages in German, French, English, and Spanish, my languages, that say, Dear X, Dear Y, I came to realize that you're both working in a similar environment. I could imagine that the exchange is mutually beneficial. Happy networking, Carsten. So I click on Eric, I click on Zandro, I copy-paste the text, I change the names, percent, 5 seconds. And then I move on. And so the cost is 5 seconds of thinking and wanting to connect people. The risk is maybe not zero, but almost zero, because maybe the people don't click. The risk is not fundamental, but the potential is unimaginably high because they might have a great conversation. They might actually meet again for a great lunch. They might do a project together. They might actually, I don't know, build a company, start dating. I don't know. So the cost is zero. The risk is almost zero, and the potential is huge. And so back to this trust thing, the more I do this, the more I invest into my own role as a connector, which builds my trust.
And what I can tell you, what I love about this approach as a connector is that we are also adding and giving and being at service to others. And I think one of the most beautiful things that in this structural networking, when we understand our roles, it's not only to take, to seek, but it's also to give, to connect, to share. And I think that within the networking, the more you give also yourself and the connection, the more you will gain back from that process. And sometimes I think that people go into this one-dimensional tunnel vision, which is me, what is in it for me, instead of really doing this exercise. I have this amazing network of people. Why don't I connect them and see what happens? Without any strings attached, if they remember me in the future, they will also do that for me. But I think there's something really significantly magical and also good in that exercise that you just mentioned. And of course, for that, we need to have trust. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much. It's very inspirational. And I really hope that the audience is going to bookmark this as something that they would proactively do no matter what, especially if they're seeking for something as well. Now, I would love to shift towards a few more questions I have for you and the conversation. It's about this attachment styles and networking and psychology behind networking. You know, what really happens to people in face-to-face events, and even we can branch into the digital networking as well, you know, from the psychological perspective. Why do people struggle in networking, and what is the psychology behind networking that we really need to decode a little bit to help people understand themselves and maybe transform and transcend certain patterns in their life to be able to show up differently?
I believe that we are raised, I don't want to generalize, but many of us are raised believing that life is about taking, but networking requires giving, which is why what I call the power question in my book, what can I do for you? It immediately positions me as a connector or as a giver. It's a very, very powerful question. So people believe that asking for help is a sign of weakness. I don't buy that. I don't think that's true in any way. And so it doesn't matter whether you speak to the junior entry level person or the experienced executive board member. Equally, they feel uncomfortable in having to ask other people. And so I can share another little story with you and our viewers now, if you don't mind. A short story about a female, an extroverted, a power lady in a huge international organization. Everybody knows that name. She lost her job, and I knew that her next job would come through networking and not through any of those social media platforms, etc., etc. Yet she just did not want to network. So I said, "What's wrong?" I don't feel good about this. I said, "Why?" "Well, I'm a nobody." I said, "What do you mean a nobody?" "Well, I lost my job, and now you want me to go out and ask for help? I don't feel good. I don't want to do that." I said, "Stop. That's the wrong approach. Let's go back in time when you were still in your job." "Okay," she said. And then I said, "In that job, when you were in that job, did people call you and ask you for help?" "Of course," she said, "all the time." And I said, "So how did it make you feel?" "Nothing. It was normal." And I said, "See, if people called you for help then, and you felt totally normal about that then, people will feel totally normal now if you ask them for help. Now, under two conditions. People know what your brand is, and people know what your task is." She did this and found a job. It's as simple as that. So overcoming this belief that I'm not good or I'm weak if I ask for help, that's the first step. I talk about self-leadership, people leadership, and ecosystem leadership in my book. Of course, if I sit on my terrace at home expecting or hoping that people would come by to help me, well, that's not going to happen. I need to take the first step. And I've learned and I've seen this thousands of times. Yes, the first 2, 3, 4 initial steps are not so easy and maybe a little bit uncomfortable. But then networking becomes one of the coolest things ever. It's like playing piano. I mean, you can't sit in front of the piano thinking, I wish I could play. You have to try. You need to get out there, and the first couple of times it sounds a little weird, but eventually, hopefully, it will work.
Exactly, it works, and it can be a lot of fun. And I think that this fun element of networking, that we're talking about, through structure, it's the way forward. One of my creative teachers in life always said, in order for us to be successful in any craft and to master any craft, we first must understand the structure behind it. If we don't have a structure, if we don't have a clarity of the steps, it's very difficult for us to have fun, to improvise, to evolve it. So I think that here is the same thing with networking, going back to the beginning of our conversation. When you understand this structural approach, so how do you do this? What is the process behind this? How do you build your personal brand? How do you know if you're seeker, giver, connector? How do you task yourself appropriately? And then how do you link this to the personal brand? When that is in the place, we can get into the place of really having fun with it. And this is all the ethos that we, in the networking, it's also about enjoying other people, enjoying connections and connecting the others. So, but for that to happen, we must go through the structure. And that's why I believe in the essence of the content of this book. And that's why I'm empowering all the leaders and small business owners, entrepreneurs, professionals, specifically who are part of our podcast, lawyers, accountants, and everybody that actually has to create network to survive and to grow their business. This is something that you really need to pay attention to, so really interesting, right? So to slowly towards the wrap up, what do you feel people should do as a result of listening to our conversation today? I know that you're teaching a lot and giving keynotes and TEDx talks, and people get inspired by you, and now hopefully a lot of people will be inspired by your books. So if you were to give any specific takeaway, anything that you think people should start practicing, can be small thing, can be big thing, something that comes to you, Carsten, right now, spontaneously, what will be your call for action?
2 things. First of all, I would invite every listener to play network memory. Just sit in front of your computer and think, whom in my network could I connect with whom? Where could I create value? without asking for anything in return. The cool thing is, though, by giving, you get. I don't connect people because I'm expecting anything in return, but the powerful thing is that eventually the network does give back more than you typically give. That's crazy. So that's one thing. And the second thing is I would take a more structured approach to the next networking event that you guys go to. Prepare either as a seeker or as a connector or as a giver. Think of the task, think of something that you want to get out of it, or think of how you can offer your network or your expertise to the benefit of other people.
Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Thank you so much. And of course, you can apply all of this into digital networks as well. You know,
Yes.
we didn't have time to open up that whole trajectory, but you know, it's important for people who are in the digitalization through social media. Same things apply, right, Carsten? Would you say that the essence is?
Yes, I actually think that the theoretical potential of being connected electronically on any of those social media is just a theoretical potential. If I lack the physical ability to network, the technological connection potential doesn't serve me any purpose because I don't know how to approach the person. So if the CEO of my dream company and I are using the same social media platform, but I don't know how to talk to the person, approach the person, it serves no purpose. So the idea, the method of structured networking actually is an enabler of deriving real value from the multiple technological connections that we all have.
Beautiful. What a powerful conversation to be continued. And for everybody, this is a strong call for action from me, especially for the leaders that we have within TNM coaching ecosystem and professionals. Please go ahead, purchase the book. We're going to, of course, link all of the websites so you can make sure to do that. I think that's a wonderful invitation, something very inspiring for us to all read and enjoy. And of course, we're going to link your website and your talks. And I'm hoping that people are engaging with you. No one is alone. No one is alone. No one is alone, and not because we are weak. You know, like I really want to say this because I believe in this concept. No one is alone. We all belong together, not because we're weak, but because we are relational by design. I think networking, it's the essence of who we are as a human being. But as any skill, if you don't know how to do it well, if you don't have a structure, methodology behind, that will become insecure, right? So look into this, learn about structure, and really go out there and engage. Thank you so much for listening. And Carsten, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Joy and pleasure and honor to have you. What a wonderful man you are and beautiful source of nature. Keep on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Zoran. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.